colleague, colleague, colleague. So, you want to learn about the word colleague? Well, let me tell you all about it. A colleague is actually a noun, which means it's a person or thing that is associated with another of the same kind. In everyday usage, a colleague is usually someone who works alongside you in an office or professional setting, like a coworker or a peer. You'd often use this word to talk about your coworkers or team members at work. Saying something like, I met with my colleagues during lunch, or, my colleagues and I worked on the project together. One special thing about this word is that it's often used in formal settings, especially in business contexts. So you might hear people using it when they're discussing company policies or working on team projects. Overall, knowing how to use the word colleague correctly can be a great way to sound more professional and fluent in English. So I wanted to show you how to use the word colleague in different scenarios. And I'll give you 3 practical examples. In a formal setting, such as a professional conference or meeting, your manager might say, I'm pleased to introduce our new colleague from the marketing department, who will be presenting their latest campaign strategies. This usage emphasizes the person's role within an organization. In contrast, in a casual conversation with coworkers over lunch or in the break room, you might use colleague to describe someone you work closely with but aren't necessarily friends with. Like, I'm trying to convince my colleague, John, to join us for happy hour this Friday. Here, the tone is more relaxed and familiar. In a business or academic context, such as a research paper or a job description, your professor or HR department might use colleague to refer to someone who works in a similar field or has equivalent expertise. Like, the team's lead researcher will be collaborating with experts from our own department as well as a colleague from the university's neuroscience program. This usage highlights the person's specialized knowledge and professional connections. So, you want to know about that person who works with you in an office or school setting, right? Well, this person is someone who shares similar responsibilities and tasks with you, but may have different areas of expertise. They're probably someone you interact with regularly, maybe even on a daily basis, whether it's through meetings, emails, or just chatting by the water cooler. This person is often someone you can count on to help you out with projects or tasks that need to get done, and they might be able to offer valuable advice or insights in their area of expertise. They're not necessarily your boss or a student who looks up to you, but rather someone who's on the same level as you, working together towards common goals. Compile, compile, compile. Let's talk about the word compile. The part of speech for compile is a verb, which means it expresses an action or a state of being. In common usage, to compile something usually means to gather and organize information, data, or details from different sources into one place, often in a written or electronic form. For example, you might say, the researcher spent all day compiling the statistics for her report. This verb is also used in computer-related contexts, where it can mean to convert source code into machine language that a computer can understand. This process is typically called compiling an app or a program. One special note about its usage is that the word compile often implies a sense of completeness or finality, as if you're putting together all the pieces of information to form a cohesive whole. So it's not usually used for partial or temporary results. In a meeting with your professor, You might say, I've been struggling to compile my research paper. Can we discuss possible sources I could use? This is an example of formal usage, where the word compile means to gather and organize information from various sources. In a casual conversation with a friend who's trying to start a blog, you might say, I'm trying to compile a list of all the restaurants in town that deliver. This is a casual usage, where the word compile means to collect or gather data for a specific purpose. In a business setting, you might say, our team has been working to compile a comprehensive report on market trends, which we'll present at the quarterly meeting. This is an example of business or academic usage, where the word compile means to create a detailed and organized document that synthesizes various pieces of information. So you want to know about this process called compiling. Basically, it's when you take some code written in a programming language and turn it into an actual program that can be run on a computer. The main characteristics of compiling are that it happens before your program is executed, and the resulting output is usually specific to the type of machine or operating system it's meant for. Similar concepts or synonyms might include translating or transpiling, which essentially do the same thing, converting code from one form to another so it can be understood by the computer. When you compile a program, it gets checked for errors and warnings, and sometimes even optimized for better performance before it's actually run on your machine. It's like preparing a recipe before cooking it. Conceive. 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 So, let's talk about the verb conceive. It can be used as both a transitive and intransitive verb, meaning it can take an object or not. In its most common usage, conceive means to form an idea or plan in your mind, or to become pregnant, which is a pretty obvious second meaning. For example, you might say, I couldn't conceive of a solution to the problem, which means that no matter how hard you tried, you just couldn't think of anything. On the other hand, she conceived the baby 9 months ago is a straightforward statement about pregnancy. One special note about its usage: when referring to pregnancy, it's usually in formal or old-fashioned writing, so you might not see it as much in everyday conversation, but it's still an important word to know. As we discuss new ideas for our company's marketing strategy, I think it would be wise to take a step back and conceive a plan that incorporates both online and offline promotional tactics, rather than rushing into something without fully considering all the angles. Meanwhile, at the dinner party last night, my friend was struggling to comprehend why her date didn't seem interested in getting to know her better. But I told her not to overthink it and just try to conceive a simple explanation for his behavior. In academic circles, researchers often need to conceive novel solutions to complex problems, such as developing new statistical models that can accurately predict the spread of diseases, which requires careful consideration and collaboration among experts in different fields. So, you want to know what conceive means? Okay, think of it like this. When we talk about conceiving something, we're talking about forming an idea or a mental picture of it in our minds. The main characteristic of conceiving is that it's an intellectual process. It happens inside your head. It's not about creating something physical, but more about understanding or imagining how something works or what it might be like. If you think of other words that are similar to this concept, you might think of imagine, picture, or visualize. They all kind of mean the same thing as conceiving, just with a slight twist as for how we use this word in everyday language. Well, it's often used when people are trying to describe an idea or a plan that they have in their minds. Like, I've been trying to conceive a new business strategy. You get the idea.